If you've ever seen this famous picture of me, you'd probably assume that I'm a man of simple pleasures. And you'd be right. But I have a deep thought or two here and there, and something I've been thinking about a whole lot lately is nostalgia. And most of my thoughts have been negative. Now, I'm not saying every type of nostalgia is bad. I think nostalgia for simpler times in one's own personal life is normal. Everyone enjoys remembering a time when they didn't need to pay rent or bills. Fond memories are the good kind of nostalgia, if such a thing exists, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with reminiscing. But I'm not here to talk about personal nostalgia today. I'm here to talk about the worst kind of nostalgia there is. Pop culture nostalgia, aka entertainment nostalgia. Not fond memories of a song or movie or video game, but memories that alter your perception of whether those things were any good on their own merits. And we should be judging things based on their own merits. We've also found ourselves in strange times where a different kind of nostalgia is beginning to constrict and suffocate original ideas. The easiest place to see this is, of course, the film industry. There has never been an era in film history with more franchises, reboots, remakes, retellings, and sequels made for movies that were popular 30 to 40 years ago, way past the point of relevancy. And the reason they do it is because millions of grown adults who remember watching those movies as a kid and liking them will spend money to see those characters on a new adventure in a movie that doesn't have to try as hard as the movie that spawned it. You know, the movie that was an actual original idea at the time. I know this is going to be lost on some of you. I accept that. Nostalgia is this intoxicating drug that entertainment just cannot fucking get enough of right now. But I'm hoping some of you will understand where I'm coming from. And if I'm really lucky, some of you will even see things differently after you watch this. Nah, probably not. There will be two different parts to this video. In the first part, I'm going to be talking specifically about how nostalgia alters our perception of entertainment media that we watched as kids. In the second part, I'm going to talk about how nostalgia has become poisonous to artistic creativity. I am a unique human being. When it comes to the value of entertainment media, I do not have a single fucking nostalgic bone in my body. I have an above average resistance to entertainment nostalgia. This is not to say that I don't like some things that most people consider shitty, or have my own taste when it comes to movies, shows, games, or books. But those tastes were shaped by my development as a human being, not just because I liked the thing when I was a kid. And there is no stronger devotion to nostalgia than to something you experienced as a child. Go back and watch a show or play a game you played as a child. Go ahead. I'll wait. Took you fucking long enough. You'll come to understand that some of those things stand the test of time and are valuable to you as actual art. And some of those things were just bullshit they fed us as kids that has no real entertainment value whatsoever. I made a video once about why historical inaccuracy is a stupid reason to hate movies. Well, today I'm here to tell you that nostalgia is a stupid reason to like them. Movies or anything else. I'm gonna try and break it down for you. I'm gonna let you witness my science, so to speak. And to do that, I'm gonna have to use things that I liked as a kid that I don't like now as examples. So you'll notice I'm carbon dating myself. I apologize if you didn't grow up with this stuff and can't relate, but my own memories are the ones I have. So let's get this out of the way first in case my list confuses you. I'm in my early 30s. I was born at the end of the 1980s. So I was a kid from the mid-90s to mid-2000s. I grew up watching Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. The first game console I ever owned was an N64, and the first book I ever read was a Goosebumps book. This one, actually. You could call me a 90s kid or a 2000s kid if you want. Just don't call me collect. I'll start with a show that's in the collective conscious at this point, Dragon Ball Z. Often cited as the show that made anime popular in the West, I was aged 9 through 13 when this show aired, and a middle school-aged boy was exactly the demographic this show was made for. Many people, like me, remember it as the first cartoon they watched that showed violence and death. Characters flew around beating each other's ass, planets were blown up, this shit was wild. But back when I was 18 or 19, I decided to watch the series again. And it's not good. Actually, it sucks. I've never watched a show that had this much filler, broke its own continuity this much. The most famous fight in the show is too fucking long and slow, and there's almost no character growth. The show's good moments don't validate the bad ones. I could make an entire video devoted to why this is bad TV. As a matter of fact, I should. But I digress. People still obsess over this show, though. They even made a spin-off that grown adults watch because they just needed to see what happened to Goku and the gang after the show ended. They just couldn't let the story die. Legends never die, right guys? Another great example of nostalgia clouding judgment is a movie I mentioned in my last video, the Tim Burton Batman. You can often age a person based on which Batman is their favorite. People between the ages of 40 and 55 tend to favor this Batman because it's the one they grew up with. Now, I personally hate this version of Batman. And you can like it. You can absolutely love it. People defend this movie as the best all the time. But if your reason for this being your favorite Batman is that it's the one you grew up with, that's not a good argument in the movie's favor. I grew up with it is not a good analysis of art. You finished growing up. You're a grown-up now. This film is not your teddy bear. The rest of us have to watch it too. Let's slide on over to video games for a second. I mentioned that the N64 was the first console I ever owned. One of the games I had for it was GoldenEye. GoldenEye is boring as fuck. It is still sometimes hailed as the greatest first-person shooter of all time. And the people who say this haven't played this game since they were 10 fucking years old. Because only a 10-year-old who's never played any other FPS would ever think this game is anything other than dog shit. If you think this game was better than the Bungie-era Halo games, you need to take a car trip to the Grand Canyon. Like, into the Grand Canyon. Hell, there were even better FPS games before GoldenEye. Ever play Doom? Those are still good. Those were just a few easy examples of things I remember enjoying as a kid that I look at as broken now. But I want to perform an experiment. How many of you immediately thought, how dare you talk shit on DBZ and the Michael Keaton Batman? Those are two of my favorite things, and haven't watched them since before you started liking girls. Or guys. You! I'm talking to you! Go back and experience these things again as a grown adult and then get back to me. That's the first shitty type of nostalgia. But it's not the worst. God, no, it's not the worst. At least this one's subjective. It's my opinion. Some people like these things and it's not hurting entertainment. This type of nostalgia just waters down your dumb brain. Now see this? This is the worst. Because this was based off something, good or bad, but at least original, that you saw when you were younger, that's now looking to cash in on your poisoned adult mind. And this shit is everywhere. And though Disney is definitely guiltiest of this sin, and we'll get to them later, they are in no way the only ones. In the past 10 years, we've gotten sequels to The Shining, Blade Runner, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Ghostbusters, Jurassic Park, Independence Day, and Space Jam. Long after any relevancy these movies could possibly maintain other than nostalgia. But they were all commercially successful, and why? Because nostalgia makes you stupid. Movie studios know this, and more of them seem to know it right now than at any other time in the past. And because they were commercially successful, they will never stop being made. I'm not anti-sequel, but these are not real sequels. Almost every worthwhile sequel ever made struck while the iron was hot. There's a window of a few years where it makes sense to put a sequel together. Even a film series gets a pass because there is some form of consistency going on with the rate at which the films are made, if not the quality. But these movies are markedly different. All of these films were huge commercial blockbusters when they came out years ago, that notably either never had sequels or had bad, forgettable sequels. And some of the original films are great, it's just they're not relevant to pop culture now. They're just corpses being reanimated. Most people don't see this shit as an obvious cash grab, and this gives me a fucking stroke. Which I guess brings us to Disney. Now, before we even talk about the miles between the apple and the tree, let's talk about good Disney. Good, old-school, hand-drawn, animated Disney. There are some Disney movies that I think are bad and that people still have an affinity towards. However, Disney has also made 90% of the greatest animated films in history. I would not ever deny that. And I think most of those movies are objectively great. If you showed me The Lion King or Aladdin for the first time as an adult, I'd still love them. They are actual great films. They've stood the test of time. But there's also this strange, sad obsession with these types of movies that some people have. Some of the songs in these movies are sung a little too much at karaoke. There are people that sing them out loud while they're playing at home. There are too many people I've met who have only seen these movies. Like 30-year-olds who've seen Beauty and the Beast, but not Goodfellas or Shawshank. I went on a date with a girl who told me her favorite movie of all time, was The Little Mermaid, and that she watched it 5 times a year or something. I've never wanted to watch my favorite movies of all time that often. Some of these movies are incredible, but there was always this foreboding shadow of bad nostalgia that surrounded them that just weirded me the fuck out. Could it be there were good movies that I enjoyed that produced a nostalgic effect that made other people who enjoyed them stupid? As it turns out, yes. Because one day, Disney pressed a button that turned this weird Disney fandom into a Disney industrial complex. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. It's well documented at this point that these live-action Disney remakes are stupid cash grabs. Most of them are shot-for-shot remakes of the animated ones that don't bring anything new to the table. And one of them in particular was such a bad idea that even die-hard Disney fans thought it was stupid. The problem is that their dumb asses paid money to go see this garbage anyway. Anyone with half a fucking brain could tell that the Lion King remake was a dog shit idea just from looking up any details about it. The characters are just realistic-looking animals that don't emote. The cast was picked completely on popularity and not on talent. Can You Feel the Love Tonight was sung during the day, and I knew all of this without ever having to watch it or pay for it. Anyone could. Google exists. The problem is they just didn't. They gave Disney their money first and complained later. Do you need me to tell you why that's the wrong move? Makes you feel like a fucking idiot having it explained to you that way, don't it? Now, how does this harm the creativity side of things? How about the fact that it obliterated the creative process that made the original versions of these films great? Go look up the list of films made by Disney Animated Studios. This is the same studio that produces the true Disney animated movies, not Pixar and not their live-action stuff. This is the part of Disney that is the reason you've ever heard of Disney. Their lifeblood. Did you notice that they haven't made a hand-drawn film since the 2011 Winnie the Pooh? And not one that wasn't a sequel since The Princess and the Frog in 2009? Disney took all the resources out of its hand-drawn stuff and originally tried to put them into its 3D stuff. If I had to guess why, it would be because the 2000s was the golden age of Pixar and the end of the Disney Renaissance. And they were trying to figure out what Pixar was doing right and what they were doing wrong. And 3D animation seemed to be their only conclusion. But aside from Frozen, their 3D stuff wasn't hitting those bombastic heights that they remembered so nostalgically from the 90s. So instead, they put all their resources into live-action remakes of their most popular animated films. That move generated the money that most of the 3D stuff wasn't generating. So now what they do is advertise the living fuck out of the remakes while letting the 3D stuff just kinda morph into their redheaded stepchild. So they hopped on 3D because it was trendy, and then hopped on remakes when they realized that Frozen was a one-hit wonder. Now Disney is at the point where they think that only something familiar can be profitable. And this is provably wrong. Disney had a slump before when Don Bluth was teabagging them in the 80s. They made a movie about dogs, he made a better movie about dogs. They made a movie about mice, he made 2 better movies about mice. Then, they took a big risk on a project that cost more money and effort than any movie they'd ever made before. The result was The Little Mermaid. Don Bluth's follow-up to that was a movie about a rooster who thinks he's Elvis. Game, set, match. What followed was a successful system that Disney earned. When a Disney movie was about to come out, Disney would advertise the ever-loving fuck out of it. Trailers would flood your TV, your movie theaters, the toy commercials would start airing. That shit was an event. And it was all done to promote an original film. A film that was adapted from a story by the Brothers Grimm or Hans Christian Andersen, yes, but still an original film that had to be written and designed practically from scratch. And it worked. The movies of the Disney Renaissance were given every possible resource available at the time to get asses in seats, and these movies became the highest grossing movies of almost every year they were released. And they did it all for a bunch of movies that, at the time, were not relics of the nostalgic past, but new fucking original movies that no one had seen before. Characters no one had seen before. Songs no one had heard before. These movies worked to earn their popularity, and that popularity became so massive that Disney forgot what caused it. It wasn't nostalgia. There was no nostalgia for these movies when they were first released. They were new. The difference is that Disney gave a shit about them and used its Disney powers to sell them to people. And that's the way it should be. New movie, advertise, people go see, and it becomes part of the collective conscious. You can make money off of something new. It's fucking possible. And Disney will never do it again because morons like you are enabling them not to. You mouth breathers keep handing over money first and asking questions later. And I know Disney was a huge digression, but understand that Disney is only the chief offender. It's the worst that could happen. All those other movies I mentioned earlier are doing the exact same thing. They're just doing it with less resources than Disney has. But they are doing it. And they are doing it for the same reasons. And if they can do it, other people who want to make a quick buck off a once popular hit film will do it. And pretty soon the originality is gone for good. And you might think, hey plebe, once they've remade every movie, they're bound to finally make some new ones, right? And to that I say, do you have any idea how many movies have come out since film was invented? That well is gonna run dry around the time we get fossilized. Most people would end a video like this by saying they hope that people stop giving these studios money and come to their senses, blah blah blah, but I don't believe this, because I'm a nihilist who has no hope for humanity. Most people walking around out there are on autopilot. This shit is gonna go on and on because too many people are poisoned by nostalgia. As I said in the beginning, the good kind of nostalgia can be just what the doctor ordered. But, like jacking off, there's a time and a place. Nostalgia for entertainment seems to be one of the hardest drugs to go cold turkey on, and it's not something I'm as intoxicated by. And you know what? I'm glad. I don't envy those weirdos who have never seen a movie that they thought was better than The Little Mermaid, or who paid money to see the Ghostbusters remake, or who are watching Dragon Ball Super right now in their 30s. To quote Billy Joel, the good old days weren't always good, and tomorrow ain't as bad as it seems. The entertainment world has endless possibilities. But you don't want endless possibilities, do you, sport? Nostalgia has made you stupid. And for most of you, it's too late. But not for me, man. Not for me. Hey guys, thanks for watching my 6th video. I hope I didn't alienate too many of you, but Jesus Christ, I'm tired of this fucking shit. So if you agree and want to be a true plebeian, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and consider clicking the Patreon link in the description.